Welcome everyone once again to the shed, and I'd like to introduce you to the device, something that I made with my good friend Eric for the Mimico Culture Days event, which was last weekend. I thought I would show you how we made it. If you've ever used Ableton or something like that, you'll probably be kind of familiar with this arrangement here of different parts on a row that you can kind of turn on and off. It's not exactly like Ableton, but it's kind of close enough. You mute and unmute parts by just hitting these pads. And then you can kind of break down the song and then bring it back in. These button pads are all funny one-shot sound effects that are probably sounding a little bit late now because I'm going through this funky recording setup. On the screen up here you can see the, start the tune again. You can see the parts each have a video file which are synced up to the track in the same way as I described in a previous video on Reaktor and VDMX and OSC used to drag the timecode slider along in VDMX. Okay, let me show you how it works. This is the main board, and it's really simple actually. It's just MDF, and these are squares of MDF. Piece of draw liner. Above there is the piezoelectric sensor sandwiched in there. Then there's a self-adhesive floor tile, I think it is, and a piece of rubber mat on the top. We've spray painted that white so you can project on it. Kind of a crudely built wooden frame. Underneath you can see these bolts are just here to give a little bit of squishiness, and that helps avoid crosstalk between pads. All of these little piezoelectric devices are just connected with Cat5 pairs to these two drum brains. This one handles the top 10 pads, and this one over here handles the bottom 5 pads. What else is happening? There's a projector up here. This is the Epson 535 short throw 1200 by 800 that Clara and I own, with a weird kind of C-clamp arrangement, which is very handy because it lets you get it anywhere, so to speak. There is a cheap but good HDMI to Cat5 extender thing, which works pretty well. It drops out occasionally, but once it's working, it's working. I mean, it drops out when you do stuff like turn on lights and power and stuff. Not very helpful. But once everything is switched on, it's all good. This is the computer end. We have the other end of the Cat5 to HDMI, and we have the MIDI Sport, which is receiving from the two brains. Everything's connected to this kind of sorry looking computer. But I got a new video card, so that means I have a lot of outputs. What else is there? Oh yes, this iPad app thing, which is a touch OSC app. Lets you just choose songs, and also lets you change the background. It's a nice video of us driving through Mimiko at night. Okay, let's head to the computer and see how the software works. Here we are in Computer World, and this is the Logic Arrange for the whole project. I'm using 3 pieces of software for this. Processing, which does a lot of just the front end and Logic stuff. Logic, which plays back the audio, and VDMX for the video. Let's have a look at the processing first. This receives the MIDI from the 2 drum brains. One of them's on channel 11, the other one's on channel 10. And once it receives a note, it comes down here and it basically turns all those different notes into pad numbers 1 to 15. Down here, it does a lot of logic. Well, not a lot really, but it figures out if you've hit one of the end pads, which turns all of the music parts on and off. It flips the states of all of these around. If you've hit one of the other ones, then it just inverts the state of that particular part. And then this mutex states down here basically says if you've turned all of them off, then it turns the end one to switch them all on. It kind of becomes a bit more obvious when you use it, and then this update surface sends a bunch of MIDI out to the other pieces of software. VDMX, this recalls the image on the pad. This turns on and off the part in Logic, and this will change the video file playing on the main screen. All of those renderings that Eric did, very nice. And that's basically it. It's not written very elegantly, but like most things like this, I wasn't really concerned because it wasn't going to get very long. And it works. Let's have a look at the Logic side. All of these parts are the different parts. There are 8 different tracks per song, and all of these parts here are MIDI, which is pulled out of the music. I just did a drum replacement, so this is the kick, and this is what makes the graphics kind of jump on the pads, kind of bounce around in time with the music. So each of these are different notes, and when VDMX receives that particular note, it kicks off a parameter of one of the video effects to make it move. Here we have, this is again something I explained in a previous video. This is a reactor which sends out OSC to VDMX to sync up the main screen videos. They're all the same length for each song, so it's pretty easy. You only need one. And you can see it just moving it along there. This is a meta message which stops the sequencer at the end of each song so you don't run into the next one. And as you may have imagined, there's some environment stuff happening. Oh, that's old. This is it. So these transformers take the notes from the processing app and turn them into meta messages. So you can see one of the last synth part muting and unmuting as I hit the pad. This is for the one-shot stuff on the bottom row, which we didn't end up using. We just used the audio straight from the video, so that all comes from VDMX. The song select. This takes input from a Touch OSC bridge, which I'm just going to turn my phone on so you can see this here. This layer will position the song pointer in Logic when you hit one of these installation trigger buttons. This takes note of on messages when you press and maps it to the stop sequencer meta message, and then when you release it goes to the marker. Is when you actually send that stop sequencer, or you need to send a stop before you send a go to marker. So this is all meta message mapping stuff, and this go button here is just mapped to the play command in Logic with a key command. I think that's about it for Logic. Let's go and have a look over here. See what's happening. So I have a couple of quite a few layers. These are all of the graphics that are happening on the main screen. Just this receives the same note message that Logic receives from the processing app, and when you turn on and off, I'm going to have a look at the effect here. It's just mapped to this show button, which just hides the layer. Here's the time slider, which is mapped to the OSC messages coming from Reactor. This layer has all the pad. These layers have all the pad images on them. They're all triggered from this media bin. There's one. If we have a look at the main drums on/off left row, we've got this off image is mapped to C-2, which is note 0, and this one is mapped to 63, I think, E3. So to get the on version of whichever image you need, you just add 64. I'm sorry, 64. So we have on and off images for each of these. Each of these layers has its own media bin, which isn't entirely necessary for this, I don't think, but it's the way it happened. And here you can see all of the videos for snare, song 1, 2, 3, hats, song 1, 2, and 3, and so on. These effects pads just literally trigger straight from the note from processing, and these backgrounds are controlled by the OSC app, and you can just switch them, or you can put them into a random mode where they just play when the last one finishes, a random new one. This is very interesting. Here's all the mapping for the pads. Doesn't do much. That I'm not using anymore because I'm on the advanced output, which I'm just sending these layers straight to the projectors. And this is just to warp the pads, because the angle of the surface is completely different to the projector angle always. These things are triggered from these MIDI regions in Logic, and these control the effects on the pads. So you can see this is coming from a MIDI note. A MIDI note's kicking that off. There's some number effects on it to make it fall slow. And then that slider is mapped straight to this zoom level, so it just makes this kick drum bulge a little bit. I think that's about all there is. Let's have a look in here. Oh, song triggers. Yes, these, in fact, the MIDI notes from Logic, when you, the MIDI notes from TouchOSC, I'm sorry, will kick these 3 buttons off, and these buttons in turn will trigger all of the write files for that song from these media bins. It's the same way I did Clara's song recall. If you want to go and watch that video, then have a look through my channel. That's it, I think. Everything worked very nicely, and hopefully this thing will get an outing again before too long. It'd be a shame just to use it once and then put it away. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and come back and check for more things. I'm sure I'll be making a couple more videos now the weather's getting colder. There's not too much else to do. Bye bye!